All right. Good evening, all of you. It is February and I missed you all last month while I was busy having surgery. I'm back. Al is not with us tonight, but instead we have my dear friend and new Wisconsin poet laureate, Brenda Cardenas. Brenda, just um, and you can unmute because we can maybe interrupt each other.
Hello, everybody. I know a lot of you, so at least a lot of you that are reading. So, yay. Happy to be here.
Who knows who's out there on YouTube? But if you feel like dropping your name or saying hello or in the chat, please do. Uh, we have been here for 25 years, not on Zoom, but we have been here for 25 plus years. And last month was the first time in all of that time that we had to cancel a show. But now we have even more energy to get going tonight. So, Brenda, thanks for being here. Y'all, we start with each of us doing a poem. So, Brenda, let them have it.
Okay. I'm going to read a very short little poem, brand new poem called Deportation. We were all once citizens of snow, born beneath the stretched skins, taut tarps of our sisters and brothers. Stateless citizens of desert doorways so low our kin had to bow to greet us as we entered the arc of this world. We each held a bowl of slate blue sky, and wherever we carried it, welcomed us home. See, there are no nations, no papers, no passports. There are no quotients in this genius heritage, only jungles of bougainvillea that reach like bodies to the morning sun, iguana tails smacking still air, only ladders to other levels of love. So that's that.
Yeah, it's just absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you.
And this is not going to be gorgeous. It's a poem I wrote some time ago called Up Shit Creek with No Sense of Smell. And I can't. Oh, so Chief Seattle to President Franklin Pierce, 1854. I can't actually read this. Continue to, oh shit. Bill, would you, Up Shit's Creek, would you read this for me? Sorry.
Turn off your speaker.
Okay. Sorry about this. All right, we may just have to go without this. A very pithy epigraph, which you won't get to hear. There's another ozone alert in this kiln of a city. Sitting ducks roast in tenement ovens while ostriched officials shiver in frigid streams of central air. Forests are dying of thirst, kindling for the next 6-alarm fire. We're out on a limb, as always, thinking we've got the answer. Cut down the tree by sawing off the branch we've crawled out on. Wily coyotes burning fuel like tomorrow is wearing a parachute, chases Roadrunner right off a cliff, doesn't plummet till he looks down to see the wide nothing below. We'll be okay. We won't look. Thank you. Okay, so oh, hi Viola. Good to see you.
Hi,
Hi,
All
everyone. Hey.
right. So we're going to get the open mic list started with Dale going. Dale, good to see you.
Hello. Can you see me? Hear me? Yes. Um, Boy, it's been a really rough couple of months, hasn't it? And I started out writing a lot of poems that were, Trump poems, and then I had to stop. And then people in my life started dying. So now I've been writing grief poems. Um, Deadscape. Dark bruise of rain clouds, bare branches in white light, gold crown of dead leaves. Any day now, they will be illegible. The world is an indictment chamber with nothing like enough avail. I was afraid I would swallow my tongue and kept falling as into an abyss. Someone suddenly died, slashed by the fragmentarity that each of us is. What was I asking for between last night and now? Nothing ever goes back. The dazzlement of skill, then the accidental happens. Inanity and insanity's slack, an incantatory corrosion shunning the interesting authenticity of a life. Is there any enduring consolation? Speaking for and with the dead is the sound of a solo tete-a-tete. And one more. A dying light. Dream last night of a dying. Not mine. Sees? I was experiencing it as he had. The woods glowed with streaming sunlight. A was making it happen. Photography, magic, morphine. She artfully designing the event, or his, my, our experience of the event. It was how he was being, experiencing dying. The soft, familiar woods, pleasant, light-filled, surrounding, enveloped, enfolded, unfolding. The body is a new form, thought at waking, where the body is all there is.
It's
Oh,
have you always, Dale. Brenda?
should I call on somebody?
Sure, let's just take turns.
Okay. How about Shelley? Shelley Nation.
Thank you. I'm going to read an old piece from a chapbook and then a more recent, but I think I've read it here, but it's been a while. This is called Stepfather. My sister and I linked together, sharing a tremble between us, walking toward hell after school, unknowing whether the demon will be visiting our house or maybe he'll be at work, and we're safe turning this corner until 6 o'clock madness. 3, 4, 5 times around the table, he grabs her hair and pulls back. Eyes red with vacant look, her mother screams, stepfather ignores and punches her in the face 6 times. If only she'd gotten off that couch. Even though she had worked for 12 hours at the amusement park, she was tired, achy, found release in fleece blanket. Can't we do it in the morning? She begged. He stood over her trembling, not understanding how someone could deny him, not given in to his demands, would not surrender to his power, so she became a flower being plucked, petals falling with each punch. Somehow, in the core of her body, her mother freed her from the demon, pulled her safety out the back door, into the neighbor's yard, down the street, and to the front bell where I sat with neighborhood children. If only she'd gotten off that damn couch and checked the oil. Entombed, my sister and I, in bathroom darkness, our stepfather screams at our mother through my own screams, I want my daddy. Telephone, shoes, hangers hit the shut door, the entrance to their room. Rivers from my eyes stain a pink Easter dress worn for this day. And for the last 4 years, I've been writing about my ancestors and Cherokee Nation history through my ancestors' voice and their experiences. And something that keeps coming back to me is the repeating of the camps, that we all know that Hitler used Andrew Jackson's removal policy and all of his ideas for Hitler and the Nazi regime. And so we're seeing it play out all over again. So this is called The Camps. It begins with my neighbor's screams. I had ignored the men with guns, military soldiers in and out. John Ross said he'd save us. Children away playing, threats encroaching, door flung open, and I am dragged out the open door, clutching the frying pan in my right hand. My neighbors' screams become my own, angry faces, spittle on my cheek, bare feet gather soil between my toes. For miles, I am forced to walk. My skirts drag the ground, collect seeds bunched in the folds. From town to town, we stumble. I recognized homes like mine being looted or burned, clothing, utensils, children's toys filling bags to be dragged onto wagons. On the other side of the forest, I am pushed towards a shack. Inside, I see neighbors, cousins, strangers. This will be our new home for 4 months. We will starve together. We will share disease and death, open sores and vomit. We will pray to our Creator. We will mourn together. We will wish the ground to open up and rescue us from this torture. Where are my children? I call to my husband in my head. He is silent. Thanks.
Thank you, Shelley.
Shelley, is the chapbook out or the book out with these poems?
Yes, it came out over the summer since I've been dealing with a friend and their cancer and going through his death. I have not promoted it or done a single thing.
Well,
But
feel like dropping it in the chat. What's it called?
it's called 10 Hours to Tulsa.
All right. Great. All right, let's see. Who next? How about Patrick Reardon?
Hello, everybody. I've got 2 poems. The first one, I was in New Orleans in September, and I went to church on Sunday in the cathedral. And this is a poem that resulted eventually from that. It's called King Louis. In the cathedral window, King Louis cares for the wounded soldiers to the shock of his generals. King Louis, the French saint, akin to a holy American president, akin to a blessed Chicago mayor, a saintly alderman of the West Side Block. Holy, holy, holy. The book of Numbers, the spirit among them, all the people, prophets. Over the pulpit, a huge brown wood seashell without Venus, the book instead. Fell into fault finding. If your eye sins, drive out demons. Spirit moves like the dewfall, holy of holies. The shirtless screamer on the plaza outside scares the stolid tourist announcing the gospel. And the second poem is called Table. Table. Let the sparrow take a chair at the Juneteenth table with Elijah, with Godot, with the Lost Tribes and the Communion of Saints and the lyrics trivia players, the postal truck child, the guilty one, the noduled one, the non-prophets and the false prophets and the prophet takers and the insurrectionist authors, the beep, beep, beep backing cement truck, the funeral homist, the dead and the not yet dead and the newly quickened. Let the sparrow nest in the choir loft, in a neighborhood of bright yellow birds, and reds, and greens, blues, grays, blacks, weaving hymns and canticles, alive with flutter about the white marble pillars, and vaulted ceiling, and foot-washing altar, ceremony of endless day. Let the sparrow join every marred thing, every roughened one, every one with fracture, stain, taint, at the midnight tables before the McDonald's on Broadway, below the university, above the L station, silent as transubstantiation in summer heat, awaiting the parade of error makers with the monstrance, procession of fools and half-fools and empty vessels and buffoons and bozos and the white wafer. As the magnet draws invisibly every atom of all time into a single pebble at the center of nothing. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick. Let's go. How about Pablo? Pablo Otavalo? Are you with us? Yay.
Yep, I'm with you. I have two for you. The first one is one that some of you may have heard before and that I fear I may have to keep reading for quite some time. This is You Wake Up for Kafka's Gregor Samsa. You wake up and one day you are a vermin and your brother a vermin and your son is a vermin and he loses his job and can't get out of bed. And you wake up walking across a desert, a checkpoint for vermin. A dangerous fool reads a book to a crowd that you are snakes, that your family should die in a river or under a house, or they say you are rats. You wake up stateless against a wall or a fence, and they throw apples at your wounded body while it's a nice day. And thank you. And this is a poem. I'm sorry. Okay, this is a poem for Helen Dagan Cohn, who's a passionate poet and a mentor and one of the founders of Rhino. And it's called "It Ends with Exit Music for a Film" for Helen Dagan Cohn. I pick up the book, but it does not speak, nor the curtain lift, nor the days fall into place, because you said we were the words we did not take for granted. And the day I saw the light shiver your hand, the sun stood still. You wanted to hold on to this sunlight through a kitchen window, this hierarchy of angels. You had discovered Transtromer's great enigma and braced against the gale on the way up the port side of death. Bella Tarr's Hungarian girl walking through a forest of rain from doom to doom, one long shot unbroken. Or Louise Buñuel's Leaps, a murmuration of starlings, sometimes the brick wall of a student union, or the choreography of a Stravinsky ballet, or God on trial for the trench in the road hemmed with barbed wire. Blue cornflowers at the edge of a wheat field, the gate and the tracks, the annexation of Czechoslovakia, a ghost of bombs, a silence of so many voices singing. What work do the words do? What labor made them to what end? A murmur at the beginning of terror, the interrogation of beauty, a loving look from a seldom affectionate mother, the ocean hemmed in crimson, a labored breath, the tide tugging at the sand, blue bits of plastic and cloudy glass, the edge of a tin sharp enough to cut your hand. Helen, I'm reading Habri, but I keep hearing the wind rattle the oaks, and before the evening blurs into downpour, I too doubt God and believe. Wake from your sleep, the drying of your tears. Today we escape, we escape.
Sometimes I think, gosh, I want to see that poem on the page or something. But what we can all do is, once the recording is posted on YouTube, all of you can go back and hear any or all of it. And you might want to tell your friends who didn't make it here tonight that they can just come to the Traveling Molly's channel on YouTube and hear this amazing reading. How about Robbie Nestor? Robbie.
Thank you. I'm just stunned by those poems. I have not been able to write about this. I'm too raw. So I have some poems that are going to be published on One Art. This one's called Vesuvius at Home, and it has an epigraph by Emily Dickinson. I judge from my geography volcanoes nearer here. I remember the clatter my mother's pressure cooker made on winter afternoons, how it spat steam, played a tune. Sometimes she sang along. Once the gauge shot off, embedding like a bullet in the ceiling. She just stood there, gazing as green goo geyser, slight smile on her lips. My mother loved her pot. I'd even say she was inspired by its potential and her own. She knew volcanoes can be still for years, though magma brews beneath. Maybe she sensed they were alike, she and this pot, that she could capture the force of the words that fueled her, the ones she muttered under her breath all day in 2 languages. She trained me to believe my words had heft, taught me to embrace the danger, learn the craft of channeling all the rich profusion that nascent power might allow. And I have another short one, also about my mother. In my memory, my mother speaks again about the loquat tree that grew outside her window in Cape Town at the very tip of Africa. She wanted me to spread the seeds of her lost life, to make them grow. She fed me all the fruits she used to know, the alligator pear, aka the avocado. She would breakfast daily on it, and in season pomegranates, bright with ruby seeds, bursting like a hive. She was Persephone, at least in her own mind, dragged to the underworld by that dark man, my father. Thank you.
All right, then. Let's see. I'm going to ask Bob Chicoine to read, if only because this has been a really intense reading, and hopefully you will bring something to the fore that's
I have 7
not
limericks.
so heartbreaking.
No, I've got just 2 concatenation type style poems. Hopefully not breaking anybody's heart. First one's called Local
Oh, I'm
Government.
sorry, Bob, I have to tell you something. I like your cat's tail.
Yeah, which one is this? Oh, yeah, it's
All right, I'm shutting up now.
the tail tells the tale. She may have some comments as we go on here. It's called Local Government. If our nation, whose grain we took for salt, comes to put the squeeze on us, to put the hurt on us, maybe our state will hold, oh Illinois. And if the state fails to hold, maybe our county will defend. And when Cook County falls back, maybe our city will dig in. And when City Hall collapses, maybe our ward and precinct will stand tall. And when their ranks are broken, maybe our block club will hold the line. And if not, well then, our old frame house will fight. And if they breach our doors, then the room where we made love and told stories and knew some peace will make it stand. And when the room is lost, an undulance of consciousness in the universe that we have always drawn from will take us in, where the nation will not be able to find us, to its utter vexation. Sure, it had looked everywhere, and will rip and tear away at itself, wondering how in the world we prevailed. I just want to take this moment to say thanks, mindfelt and heartfelt, to Nina and Alan and Messentia, and to Bill and Kurt on tech, and all the readers over the years, the 20 some years, nearly all of which I've been coming to this thing for, through live and through virtual. And what is it now, 5 summers ago when you made the transition to Zoom. It was certainly one of the things that got me through the first year of COVID and continues to get me through the years of this life. And so this little ditty is about that. I thought for sure there would always be a circus to run away with if I needed to, or attend as a spectator when the world outside the big top got too tough to swallow. Well, funny thing, the circus, it turns out, thought there would always be a racetrack for much the same reason. And the racetrack thought there'd always be a Riverview amusement park. And Riverview thought there'd always be a Sears Roebuck. And Sears thought there'd always be a drive-in movie theater on the edge of town. And the drive-in thought there'd always be the first breath of spring to stop you in your tracks. And the first breath thought there'd always be a river that is never the same twice. And the river thought there'd always be the vastness of this universe. And the universe thought, for all it was worth, there would never not be a traveling Mollys on Monday nights. And funny thing, here we are. Thank you.
Brenda?
Sorry about that. I got caught up in thinking about how those poems just made me smile. Haven't been doing a whole lot of smiling lately, so it's good to smile. Um, how about Annie? Annie Wenstrup?
Thank you. Thank you for having me tonight. I have two poems about death, so I'm glad that we had a happy moment there first. Gugwini translates the archives as Persephone. I ate and the fireweed blazed. Roadside blooms snared roadkill, while asphalt caught leaves, the way a calloused hand snags silk. Termination dust capped mountains, concealed rocks and troubled aspens. I ate and the wind gave birch branches breath. With borrowed reanimation, their trunks slivered from silver jackets, and they bowed to my ear. There they named their future selves, veiled and violet-toothed polypore, shaggy scaly cap, funeral bell. The high bush cranberries flamed their leaves in agreement, and still I ate, bitter flesh broken by stretched shadows. Now, not enough sweetness tethers this world. My empty hand, estranged mouth, stained with longing. And palimpsest. Sometimes I forget to brush my teeth. I have tartar on my gum lines, and I do my best, but still it happens. Reassuringly, dental decay stops once you die. Suddenly durable, your teeth outlast almost everything. After the rest of you softens to earth, your teeth will keep company with your jewelry and the nylon thread that held your clothes together. In 1,000 years, it could happen to me. In 2019, an archaeologist cleaned plaque off a nun's 1,000-year-old tooth. First, she dissolved the tartar in weak acid, then placed it on a slide. She was looking for food, bacteria, or pollen. Research like this is how we know that 3,000 years ago, the Philistines imported bananas, turmeric, and soy. I imagine that looking through the microscope and discerning cream from ivory is like looking at paint samples on a wall. But this tooth, under the lens, this woman's tartar bloomed with blue speckles like a robin's egg, blue like the Virgin Mary's robes, blue like the sky in the Last Judgment, blue as though she'd eaten lapis lazuli for breakfast. Who does that with a stone? One so precious it was once more valuable than gold. So holy it was crushed to illustrate the word of God. Once I played with my grandfather's magnifying glass, and I pretended to be like him, held over pennies and dimes. The raised profiles of men swelled the glass. It was the kind of seeing where looking confirmed the faces that were already there. This looking is different. Through the microscope's eye comes a woman. See her tongue tip her paintbrush to a point. See how holiness kisses her teeth. See her illuminate her manuscript.
Wow, Annie, thanks for being here. And Kim, thank you for pointing her in our direction. We have our regulars here at Mollys, people who've been coming is like Bob for a long time. And then, but we ask features too, to let some people that they know that they should contact us and throw their names in the ring to be chosen for the open mic. Annie's from Alaska, so why don't we go from there to Hawaii? John Simmons.
Hi, hey everybody. Thanks, Nina and everyone. And happy to be out here in Honolulu. Just a very quick footnote. My granddaughter, the librarian in West Allis, will be impressed, I hope, that I'm on the same screen with the poet laureate of her state. And she also is a poet and novelist. So thank you, Brenda, for being with us tonight. This is called Hand-Me-Down Chair. Under the settling terms and over the years, sitting here in my father's chair seems like a sound place to be. Beneath its lime green slipcover and across an ocean of travel, the real chair's a bit of a mystery, like its past owner, a semi-abandoned child of newspaper forebears, an athletic accountant whose life amounted to more than his resume score. What does add up are hand smudges, the old man's and mine, soiling the front of each armrest, aging in layered stains. I do not lift the light barbells he sat and hoisted each day in his Connecticut living room, but clear instead my cell phone, grown heavy with traffic and emails. I often fall asleep trying to purge with tired thumbs. We shipped a chair to Hawaii when father died at 97, maybe thinking it held lingering vibes of long life in its old padded arms and gently firm back. It saw me through a leg muscle, bruise and swell bout that spread from hip to calf with shooting zings of linear pain and partial numbing, strangely curing itself and baffling my vein doc, whose specialty's treating such things. Along with the chair, we saved and sent home to our island a grandfather clock, a dark maple piece with classic square-top design, though for more than a decade, its hands have remained at 11 and 1. Spending to make it work yielded to letting it tower unfixed, a looming antique suggestion of Pacific time standing still. Not the grandfather's clock of the long ago lyrics, more a triumph of charm over value. My family's less approving than I of my choice to grow old in the grasp of my father's green chair. My posture's too slumpy, eyes too likely to close, phasing to afternoon doze, not the look of dignified comfort they'd frame on their memory walls. But it's become a cradle of sorts for my rough draft offspring. Ballpoint ideas I scramble to fuse with lined pages, facing computer prompt deadlines of Zooming friends elsewhere. If no one wants to inherit this seat, maybe a few of my words will keep its life going forward. Remembered by inky remains, hands of past use have left on the arms of its occupied years. Thank you.
Sorry, I keep forgetting to unmute. Thank you so much. That was lovely. I was thinking about that chair. I have a piece like that too, a chair that a great uncle of mine made, carved and made by hand. This one is a rocker, and I can't imagine ever getting rid of it. Okay, let's see. Who should we go to? How about Molly? Molly Sturdivant?
Molly has a very cute cat, I'm noticing. So this is maybe a good night for cats.
You always notice the kitties.
I
Maybe
can't.
you're a cat person.
Cannot hear you. You don't look muted, but I can't hear you.
I can't hear you either.
Yeah.
I wonder. Yeah, but it doesn't look muted.
Now?
Yes.
Now,
Oh,
now, yeah.
okay. Okay. Happy to be here. I have a poem that's very unbaked, underbaked, but it resonates a lot with what people have been saying. So thank you. Happy to be here. I love what I've heard. So this is called Three Confessions after Joni Mitchell. You don't know what you got till it's gone. Number 1. It has been 8 years since the last time I enjoyed Los Angeles, visiting former in-laws, begging them to eat from their lemon tree. Well, then how about the orange tree? I said, are no trees useful here? See how palm trees fail to shade me or change colors, and how much steering, turning, always driving sand through the leg of my pants, can't go anywhere without squinting there. Mostly I do not love ocean taste and tiny flies, edging beach lot, bone-washed things. I'm a socks and shoes girl, vitamin D low, but I know an apocalypse when I see one. How this blaze jumped, spread, took, turned my mother-in-law's one tall tree into a candle for a funeral, a vigil on the eve of this new era when we're used to being opened by grief. I mean, when we see things disappearing, only then we will realize we liked it. We'll miss that place, that man, that road. 2. I confess, it has been 4 weeks since I felt human. I'm ungrounded with envy, jealous AF. You are stricken with it. Has there been any other word for how envy resides? Stricken, we say, green. It wasn't a lover, that luxury of ordinary time. It wasn't FOMO, some unaffordable lug sole, loafer, crossbody bag, pure leather, minor victory. Our jealousy is knowing that other people act whole and entire, other people rage, or we have in iconic moments, in compartmentalized groups. My envy says to me, write a poem about a national strike or stay green. I think of the French disrupting life for days because of a pension subclause part 2B. Swedish Greta sitting down with her backpack. Any lover of fresh salmon's hand glued to the door of the bank. Poets, it's funny how much rides on a handwritten document. I'm more touched by the penmanship than I should be, but tomorrow, will we go to work, go to school, leave the glue in the drawer? It'll be another heavy weekday then, since jealousy strikes and drowns. It pulls us into the era when we are opened by grief. Sure, now that I see that old document disappearing, I will miss that right, that check, that ground. 3. I do not want to be only openable by grief, I confess. This is the condition for the possibility of feeling free, only in the context of maltreatment, by nature, by fascist clowns, by whatever is indifferent to human pathos. Forgive me. Let me not put up a parking lot. Let my penance be letting spring be peonies waging perfume on the grass so that I will act. Keep me close to my own most human movements, in awe of this one loud cardinal making demands, the red-winged blackbird trilling, diving, defending in the mess of new buds springing. This is the ground by which we are, for which we are not pulled under, on which I write for my son some kind of tomorrow, or forgive me. Thank you.
That was amazing, Molly. Thank you. So announcements. First of all, if I didn't say it before, my co-host Al DeGenova is not here. That should be evident. Thanking Brenda for stepping in, and he should be back next month when we're going to be featuring let me pull it up, the people who we had to cancel last month, and that's Rachel Robbins and Lee Herrick, who's a poet laureate of California. So another thing, stand by, and you're about to hear two wonderful poets, Kim Blaeser and Leslie Sainz, and you will hear them after our last poet in the open mic. I don't need to announce that this is one of the best open mics around, but I'm just going to say it. And so saying, we like to pay our features. Crazy idea. We used to be able to pass the hat back in the day, but now all we can do is to ask you to visit the link that Bill is about to drop in the chat, and you'll see a donate button. It's on the Al's After Hours website. And just be assured that that money will be distributed to tonight's poets. And just think about how much love and tears goes into the writing of a poem, and all we can give them is this pittance. Oh, and another thing we can give them and give ourselves is to buy their books. And we will have them put those in the chat, links to those in momentarily, or now, or later. But before we do that, Viola Lee, it's always good to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Good to see you. Thank you, Nina and Bill. Thank you, Al. I know you're not here. And thank you, Brenda. Thank you all. I'm going to read two really quick. Well, actually, one is longer and then the second one is quick. But these are two poems about their love poems, and they're dedicated to my father who recently passed. Okay, here we go. The first poem is called The God That Keeps You Here. The God that keeps you here. Oh, we are sitting with these old photos of you, looking for ones to display on black foam core. All of them are in black and white, and many of them are images of you in military uniform, standing next to strangers. Everyone is young, regal, and beautiful. Who knows what the date or year is? It doesn't matter. Who knows what is happening or why these photos were even taken? Maybe to memorialize this brief stint of your life, taking part in a task that prepares men for war. But today, everything is an embodiment of you, the flowers that need pruning, the moth flying into the light by the back door late at night, the neighbor bringing over a store-bought lemon cake, this blue cloth that protects these old photos of you. Everything embodies you, what you built, the hard work and love that you gave and are still showing. Everything, the peaches, the snack aisle at the gas station, everything, that dragonfly by the railroad tracks, the skunk crossing the street as we were getting into the car last night, the group of white-tailed rabbits hopping around the block, everything. The God that keeps you here is the same God that wants you to stay in the body, God of the body, God of the here, the God of this house. Why didn't you stay? Grateful and abundance are the two words that come to mind, and love and enough. These two words too. With you, there was always enough and so much of it. You taught me this. Love, oh God, to love, love. Okay, that's the first poem. And then the second poem, this one will be quick, is called What Luck. What luck. Sitting at a cafe with my son a few weeks after my dad's death, drinking lemonade, and out of nowhere, the words, what luck, come to me. What luck that we get to be here. What luck to grieve every part of the body. What luck that we have memory. What luck to write about this loss. Oh God, what luck to have loved you. Thank you.
What a wonderful open mic. Thank you.
Really?
All of you. Brenda, talk about luck. Aren't we lucky to be able
Mhm. Very lucky. Really beautiful poems through and through.
Yeah. And now to the next part of the evening. We're going to start with Leslie Sainz. And let me tell you about her. Let's see if I can find it. Here we go. Leslie is the author of Have You Been Long Enough at Table? That's out on Tin House. Came out in 2023. She was the winner of the 2024 Audre Lorde Award and a finalist for the Poetry Society of America's Norma Farber First Book Award. And, you know, there's a whole lot of awards here, so I may not be able to get to all of them. The daughter of Cuban exiles, her work has appeared in the Academy of American Poets Poem a Day, Yale, Kenyon, American Poetry Review, and elsewhere. She's received fellowships, scholarships, honors from the NEA, Canto Mundo, the Miami Writers Institute, and quite a few more. And she was formerly a guest host of the award-winning podcast, The Slowdown, which Major Jackson hosts, and you may have heard him here a few months ago. But you may want to check that out, her guest host podcasts. And she currently works as the managing editor of the New England Review and teaches in the Newport MFA program. So, Leslie, So glad you made it.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much, Nina, Bill, Al, for inviting me back. It was so heartbreaking for me to have to cancel back in, was it June of last year? I just had an awful personal emergency, that happened like mid-afternoon that day. So, yeah, thank you so much for having me back. This really is such a phenomenal open mic, and not just based off of the talent of the work, but you're all really good readers of your own work, which is not a given at an open mic. So you really should all be quite proud of yourselves, and I'm thrilled to share this space. Um, I just want to give a shout out to Annie Wenstrup, who I adore. We published her poems in NER recently-ish. And she's a phenomenal poet. You should all pre-order her debut collection, which is coming out, I guess, in a few months now, right, Annie? Yes, very exciting. And Brenda, actually, I was part of the virtual Cantomundo workshop that you gave. Yeah, all those moons ago now. So yeah, in an interesting way, I have, there's these little connections between us, aside from also just the poetry that connects us. So yeah, I'll be reading a few poems from my debut poetry collection, which is blurred unless I put it here. Have You Been Long Enough at Table, which, as Nina said, came out in September 2023. It is a pretty tragic collection, I would say. So I'm definitely not going to be a mood booster like Bob's poems. But yeah, I hope you'll stay with me. So let's see if I can remember my elevator pitch. It's been a while since I've given it. So this collection follows a queer Cuban American woman, primary speaker, who goes through a series of kind of careful unlearnings as she self-determines and chooses to kind of disinherit the conservative political ideology in which she was raised, in which her parents hold. And there are a lot of that is happening sort of against the backdrop of Cuba-US relations. So there's a lot of history there. It's set across 3 sections, and you'll see like a sort of progressive politics emerge across each section. So I'll read maybe like 2 poems per section, just so you can kind of get that illustrated. And so the first poem I'll read is actually the first poem in the book. It's a frontispiece because it appears before the first section break. I don't know if you're even going to be able to see it. It's my blurred background. But this poem is dedicated to Los Balseros. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, Los Balseros are the Cuban boat people who risk their lives building makeshift rafts as part of the Cuban exodus, to essentially sail a roughly 90-mile journey to the southernmost point of the United States in search of freedom, security, opportunity. And the first Cuban exodus really, especially with Los Balseros, is dated around 1994. Although in recent years, actually, we've seen last year was a record high as well for Balseros. So it is still an ongoing crisis. So this is Nio, para los balseros. There is no country where the dead don't float. Men and children going, having gone, lung wet, across thickened water. Be it the body to know what's missing, to call back the colors. At sea, the stomach is a bugle, though I've heard it called a scream. Oil drums, headless as monarchs, styrofoam on the knees, said of regimes, under or over, here or there. The orchids are lovely this time of year. and the women writing. What covers the land and is the land, much in us still. Thank you. So I think the next one I'll read, it's titled Glassware, and it's in sections. And this is sort of when the primary speaker is really starting to notice that there's a cognitive dissonance between what they learn when they engage with the historical archive versus their parents' own narratives. Glassware. 1. Overhearing an argument, something beneath my cheeks like heat, like cowbells. I am at my most probable, most liquid suddenly. I come when called. 2. Over dinner, a man, melting, sells American pillows through the television. The napkins are of a thick paper. The dishware, all rounded, the color of most bandages. I am impressed by my convincing father and loyal mother. Their face veins make clear they are not lying to themselves, not themselves. Faithfully, I am a large shard made of their smaller shards. If you were to turn my ears inside out, hot skin, sleep, only trust your family. 3. My father used to blow glass in California, sell plated jewelry from a dark gray suitcase, have regrets. My mother worked for Eastern Airlines and ate very little. Now, my mother lives alone and with my father in Miami. My father lives with my mother and some days himself. 4. When I am hurt, my sorry skull vibrates, needs sleep. I was barefoot when glass appeared on the floor. This time, most times, rage to keep it company. When no one apologizes, my eyes roll out of my head as packets of fake sugar. 5. Shortly after the revolution, children, students, worked the sugarcane fields. I hear this because it is told to me in the kitchen by my hurt parents. In 1964, a 12-year-old boy named Arnaldo Carrillo was said to have cut 7,608 pounds of cane a day. Fidel holds still the record, 9,230 pounds. 6. Sugar appears in many American fantasies. The convincing 60s sugar glass made to simulate broken windows and windshields. I will never taste it. It doesn't harm the actor. It harms the actor, argues the internet. Transparent, brittle sugar. When I study the 60s, other time periods, my eyes turn red like from cameras, or rum, or furnaces, or sand. Thank you. I should mention too that I am such a big cat person, like an obsessive cat person. So all of the cats here tonight have been very heartwarming. Just to prove it, I'm at my writing desk right now and I have cat-shaped Post-it notes. So I really walk the walk and talk the talk. My cats are sleeping in the living room where it's nice and toasty. My desk is at the top of stairs, like a landing, and so it's actually quite cold here. So they're living the life over there. All right, so this next poem is from the second section, and it's dedicated to the memory of Elena Milagro de Hoyos, which a lot of people aren't familiar with. My mother loves watching like the smut of the History Channel or the Discovery Channel. So she loves watching like ancient aliens or, like haunted locations. And so one day she was watching, Haunted Locales Key West edition. And that's how I learned the story of Elena Milagro de Hoyos. So essentially, she is a young Cuban woman who emigrated to Key West with her family. Her parents worked in a cigar factory. This is early 20th century. And she becomes something of a local celebrity because she's very beautiful and she has a gorgeous singing voice. And tourists actually kind of stop her in the street and try to take a photograph of her or take a photograph with her simply because she's, again, a sort of minor celebrity around town. She gets married. Unfortunately, she miscarries a child, and shortly after that, she contracts tuberculosis at around age 21. And a older German man named Karl Tanzler, who is not a medical doctor but posed as one, became obsessed with her, and told the family that he would care for her and cure her, which doesn't happen. But a lot of really tragic and violent things happen afterwards. I'm not going to detail the violence that she suffered um, because I'm not going to. You can Google her name if you want to see it. Unfortunately, if you do Google her name, pretty much the archive only acknowledges what she was a victim of rather than her life as she lived it. And so when I first encountered her story, or not really her story, but his perverse, depraved story, I just couldn't shake it, and I tried for years to write a poem about it, and I was doing it all wrong. I was in grad school, and I think I was trying to write about the situation, and I realized that wasn't a means of really honoring her, and instead I chose to write to her in the epistolary tradition. And so this poem that I'm going to read, which is dedicated to her and to sort of memorializing her life as she lived it rather than what happened to her afterwards, um, takes inspiration from Jean Valentine's Lucy sequence. Um, that's definitely an ancestor, I think, to this poem. So this is At the Center of the Story and Utterly Left Out, para Elena Milagro de Hoyos. I thoughts, all any of us have. I'm having the thought, it's too late in my life to stop crying. Elena, can we practice this? I notice I'm having the thought, it's too late in my life to stop crying. There are things beyond belief, like garlic, like we have the same wrists. How did you place yours when you sang sweetly? Elena, yesterday I saw the reddest fire hydrant imaginable. It wasn't beyond belief, but I was startled. That kind of red should only exist inside of us, I think. I wish neither of us could recognize that color. Do you believe we want enough of ourselves? Once a week I walk to the same construction site a mile away from my home. I kick one rock out of formation from a larger pile of rocks. No one sees me. No men have punished me. Elena, I'm saying no men have punished me because of these walks. Rudolph Valentino, did you know he was nearsighted? Elena, your favorite actor was nearsighted. I feel quite unreal, he said once, maybe twice, into a beautiful microphone. You and I, the difference between us. I look severe. I don't like having my picture taken. I just don't. I had the nightmare again about choking on a bay leaf. Real fear like girls are real. In real life, It happens most when someone else has served you. Elena, on accident and not, when have you ignored the dangers? Elena, Elena, they were wrong. Elena, our mothers were wrong about kindness. Thank you. Let's see. How am I doing on time? We're doing okay?
I think 5 minutes.
Perfect. Okay. So I will read just two more then. So this next poem starts the third section, and it's really where we just sort of indict mom and dad for indoctrinating me with Fox News for most of my life, as is the case with many Cuban exiles. They are really, they can hold a grudge. They're really upset at Kennedy. And so, you know, so they put Trump in office again. I apologize on behalf of the Cuban Americans contingent. Okay, so this poem's called Self-Determination Theory, and it has an epigraph from Gertrude Stein that reads, "There is something in this native land business, and you cannot get away from it." Self-determination theory. I sit in the living room. In the living room, my mother chokes on something cold and sharp. I launch an investigation. She is wearing a blue cotton shirt. Her shoulders are showing. The television is hush. I conclude she is struggling with a unique idea, one she should keep. Just like that, sparks. Reds, whites. It is the savior mother calls US. US places his arms around her abdomen and applies sudden upward pressure. She heaves. The volume of the Nut News channel rises, and the sound alerts my father in the kitchen. To enter the living room, my father must step over the bodies of other Spanish-speaking men. He does so with ease. I weep in the living room. In the living room, my father watches US grope my mother, and though he is a jealous man, he says nothing, because he too accepts no other touch. If you can believe it, that is not the poem that my parents are most upset about in this collection. They're a funny bunch. All right. So this last poem I'm going to read is the penultimate poem in the collection. And it is part of a American sonnet sequence that I think of as the sort of spiritual backbone of the collection. It is written for and alongside the Orishas of Santeria, the Afro-Cuban religion. For those who aren't familiar, essentially enslaved West Africans brought their religious traditions to the Caribbean, to Cuba. Under Spanish colonial rule, they could not practice freely because it wasn't Catholicism. There we go. This is my cat Julius's butt. He does not like, he's very into decolonizing, which is probably why he made his appearance here. Anyway, under Spanish colonial rule, they could not practice freely. So what they did was they synchronized the religions in order to practice sort of in secret. And that became Santeria. So I have written these American sonnets for 7 orishas of the tradition. There are more than that. But those 7 are kind of commonly referred to as las siete potencias africanas, or the 7 African powers. And this sonnet is sonnet for Oshun, and Oshun is super important. So, I mean, they're all important, but Oshun is especially important to me. So Oshun is synchronized actually with the Virgin Mary. but she represents fertility, femininity, rivers, and also the island itself. So Oshun in general is very important to Cubans. And so this is Sonnet for Oshun. After my left arm, I washed my right, neck, décolletage, and navel. I ate ground meat with large crystals of imported salt. The women and men who would stroke my hair if I asked, I thought of them fondly, then sadly. At the flea market, what I touched with a fingernail was a copper lamp, a mundane painting of mountains, the cashier's hum. I bought nothing I didn't want. In the cul-de-sac, I found clouds on leashes, loose roosters. I thought thoughts ugly as clothespins. Reading a used book, I suspected I knew less about death than the last person who held it. I spat into a mirrored sink. I lost my slippers and face. To feel more like water, I drank it. Before bed, I walked my plank of uncertainties and plunged further into uncertainty. Am I capturing all of history in this gesture? I shouted into the future. In the wet air of the future, I could have, but never appeared. No one was sorry but me. Thank you so much.
That was lovely, lovely and powerful. And you have a gorgeous cat who's
Woo-hoo! Yeah, beautiful.
I will say, before Brenda introduces Kim, that Leslie dropped some pretty heavy kind of like leads into, if you want to know more, you have to buy her book. So she's leaving us with that. And Brenda.
Yeah. Thank you, Leslie. That was just gorgeous. Beautiful reading. I am really happy to be here tonight. I'm actually kind of glad that Al couldn't make it tonight because I get to introduce my former colleague at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and my forever colleague in the land of poetry, and my friend Kim Blaeser. Kim is a past Wisconsin Poet Laureate and founding director of Indigenous Nations Poets in UPHO. She is the author of 6 poetry collections, including Ancient Light, this beauty, Ancient Light from University of Arizona Press. And Copper, this is the most recent book. Copper Yearning is another recent book, and I cannot pronounce the French, but it's something like Résister in Dansant. And I cannot pronounce the Anishinaabe, but it's something like Akwe Nimi. But I'll have Kim say those correctly for us. In English, Dancing Resistance. Her photographs and her picto poems have appeared in exhibits such as Visualizing Sovereignty and No More Stolen Sisters. Enrolled at White Earth, Kim Blaeser is an Anishinaabe activist and environmentalist whose accolades include the Barnes & Noble Writer for Writers Award and a Lifetime Achievement Award from Native Writers Circle of the Americas. She is an MFA faculty member still at the Institute of American Indian Arts and a professor emerita from UW-Milwaukee. And I've been reading her work and following her work for many years. So welcome, Kim. So happy to have you here.
Thank you so much, Brenda. It's really a pleasure to be here with all of you. And I echo what Leslie said. The reading, the open mic is just gorgeous. I love the variety. I loved hearing your voices. I love the play. And I love, the pain that you underscore for us, because sometimes we can't put into words what we're feeling. And so that's why we need other poets. So I'm really grateful to be here with all of you. And I'm going to read from Ancient Light, but I'm also going to read a couple of new things. And then I thought, why neglect everything we've ever written before? I'm going to pull in at least one older poem as well. So I've talked a lot about this book. This book is just about a year old. And I find that I read a lot of the same things. So I'm trying to not read all the same things I usually do tonight. You can go find those in some of the other readings. But what I do want to say is the way that this book is configured is it kind of opens taking a hard look at colonization and everything colonization has wrought. And then, as the title suggests, Ancient Light, it's sort of wondering how do we survive from this, heal? How do we flourish in spite of this? And so I go to some Indigenous teachings. I go to, the connections we have with place and the way that we learn from the world around us, and just, some of the things that seems to be healing. And there's the other thread that kind of runs through there is it is a pandemic book as well. So there's that other kind of illness, and then the racism that we were all facing, we all have been facing, but very heatedly in the midst of the pandemic with the murder of George Floyd and so forth. So there's a lot that's happening here. And just as Leslie said, she has this sort of group of sonnets that run through. I have a group of poems that are a form that I created. It's actually not so much a form as it's an aesthetic. They're all called The Way We Love Something Small. So it's something that's woven through there. So I'll try to pick up some of those threads. But I want to start just by introducing myself by way of place. The where in my belly. Scientists say my brain and heart are 73% water. They underestimate me. A small island menace, I emerged from Minnesota's northern lakes. The where of Monoman, wild rice in my belly. I am from boats and canoes and kayaks, from tribal ghosts who rise at dawn, dance like wisps of fog on water. My where is White Earth Nation and white pine forests, knees summer stained with blueberries, pink lady slippers open and wild as my feet. I grew up where math was canasta, where we recited times tables while ice fishing at 20 below, spent nights whistling to northern lights. I am from old, medicine barks and teas, from early, the air damp with cedar, the crack of a mick, beaver tails on water, their echo now, a warning to where fish become a percentage of mercury, become a poison statistic, to where copper mines back against 1,000,000 blue acres of sacred. I am from Nabih and Ogeechee-Dakweg, women warriors and water protectors, from seed gatherers and song makers, the wet where pulse in my belly, whispers and repeats, likely endless sound of waves on ledge rock, waves on ledge rock, on ledge rock, on waves, on water, Nupi. So that is Be by Way of Place. And then I'm going to go to it links with this collection because it is doing what some of the pieces in this collection are doing, but it is a newer poem, and it's one that was recently featured in Poem a Day, and the title is I Was Built by Inherited Hungers. This is not a poem that names them. As a body politic, we take up space in their ledgers. Yes, my relatives are the salvage bodies of history. We have ways they do not approve of, how we feed ourselves, for one. I have been taught where to find the winter cache of squirrels and how to walk away. As we walk, my brother quiets me. You cannot tell stories until you visit the places where they make their homes. Father said the garden song calls the pollinators, and we must sing in tune. Me mama said, leave some for the spirits and the little people. And what she meant was, we are small in the green, frayed body of belonging. We learn from Makwa, from Mahingan, sometimes even from Nunabaju. By this, I mean, not everything tattered is ruined. Too. They believe I was built of equations for gain. This poem is not an anthem. We still follow pictospirits, animal tracks, and seed paths. Not all of our tools have price tags. Not all of our safeguards are weapons. You will not find wild game in our lexicon. Ask yourself, are we the meat they covet? So there's a lot to say about that, and I'm not going to say a great deal about each of the poems, and I'm happy to talk about them when we're finished, but I'm going to try to just give you a taste of some of these things that are happening in my poetry at this moment. So the next thing that I'd love to read is because Nina asked me to read this poem that I put up on Inauguration Day, and so it's a really new poem, but like many of you, I wanted not to be a part of that. I wanted not to watch and listen to crap. And so, anyway, this is the poem Inauguration. 3 a.m., I listened while ice drummed and trees popped. This percussion of an Arctic blast filled the January dark. What comfort we sleepless seek, not bugles or many gun salutes, not bright pomp nor Bible promises, but earth turning over season by season, this older chorus of endings, beginnings. Freeze of sunrise returns, horizon a song we know by heart. Prairie's rough snow parchment already marked by glyphs, hungry prayers of rabbits, owl, and deer. Because my faith in alphabets has faltered, I too seek landscapes, place entreaties there. So I think that sort of looking elsewhere for meaning and or finding, like a wellness somewhere else is what we've been doing in different ways for quite some time. And so there is this whole series that I alluded to in my book they're spread out and they all have that name. And I will just read this little, gathering of these, The Way We Love Something, small poems. I tucked in here another new one, and this is one that came out in the Alaskan Quarterly. So in advance of that, I'll just say that I was in Italy. I was lucky enough to be in Italy for 6 weeks. It was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And during that time, we watched 2 full moons rise in the saddle of the mountains. So one of the poems comes from that incredible beauty. But the thing about these, The Way We Love Something small poems, is that they come out of the Anishinaabe dream song tradition, and they come out of, in my mind, also they're related to the haiku tradition, especially, kind of Zen haiku. So you can see that, you can feel that, and we could talk more about it. But part of what they do is look closely at the world, but also they look deeply, because looking deeply is part of the way that I believe we are changed or transformed or healed. And so that's sort of the gesture of many of these poems. The way we love something small. In the cold blur hour of winter, the world wound tight and blue, while we fold and triangle white paper, our kindergarten scissors, an act of God. We open, close, and fractal, replicating. Even then, our tenderness, too big for accuracy. The way we love something small. Moon glow in the saddle of mountains, a golden eye opening. Now we who watch Jesus rising fill, we too grow round with being seen. The way we love something small. Alaskan poems you didn't write live like drum beats under your skin, whisper scratch you on the other side of sound. What is meter but another word for memory? Caribou bending to water in blue light, the unreality of mountain peaks at dawn, endless tundra littered with shed antlers, all jagged and boned, glimpses of eternity. We watch days bump suns in Alaskan skies, our pockets empty of words for measure. How eloquent this lapping against singularity. The way we love something small. Here, delicate ink of mayflies on the glazed gray pottery of lake, graveyard of tiny ghosts on summer cerulean, elongated bodies splayed, the stained glass window of their wings, translucent, how they flutter, a ballet for fishes. Shimmer of wings repeats, repeats, repeats across some glass surface of being. How our eyes count infinity, how exquisitely it eludes. The way we love something small. Inky leaf shadows on snow, each animal track a hollow, trace of bird feet, double oval of deer, the glyphs we make, the ones we follow. Miigwech. So another move that this book makes is trying to recognize communities like this one as part of the source of, of survival, of flourishing, of healing, of happiness, for heaven's sakes. And I feel like that is also where we're going to be reaching very much in the months and years to come. And so I want to offer this poem for this community and for all the communities that we're a part of that have welcomed us and sustain us. About standing in kinship. We all had the same little bones in our foot, 26 with funny names like navicular. Together, they build something strong. Our foot arch, a pyramid holding us up. The bones don't get casts when they break. We tape them one phalange to its neighbor for support. Other things like sorrow work that way too. Find healing in the leaning, in the closeness. Our feet have 1/4 of all the bones in our body. Maybe we should give more honor to feet and to all those tiny but blessed cogs in the world, communities, the forgotten architecture of friendship. All right. I think I have this all timed out well, so I should have room for maybe 3 more poems, I think. So I'll keep doing that. So this poem is one in the collection that is autobiographical. It is also an eco poem, and it's a narrative. I hope you can be there in all of those things. And it features one of my elder uncles, Bill Antal. Here we begin with gesture. Bill bends, his left leg a stiffening, he works around. On 3, we lift one fallen cross pole, then another. With red bandana, he mops his brow. 12 feet away, a TV crew itches, counting down. Their deadline is newsfeed. This repair is not the work, but the preamble. White pine, wooden grave houses, fragrant grains of kinnikinnick dampen as we hold them in the left, the heart hand. Nearby, ferns and grasses sway like dancers, their songs steady, not gone. A soft shh, shh, while Nisha Shen's rhymy bird voice rises. Our tobacco gift, our words placed just so. Suddenly, Uncle straightens, lengthens his neck to stare with dark Buddy Holly IHS rims, fixes on the expectant lens of the KSTP camera, tripod and glass viewfinder, squaring our world. Now his chin lifts, his flanneled arms, they arc slowly like the sun, cupping the land, Jesus caressing Anishinaabe, a king, dawn to dusk. All of us wait in the silence of old trees, still standing. Another part of the book is this attention to Anishinaabe-Moan, or language recovery, or what we're now talking about in Inepo, language back. And so I have always used Anishinaabe-Moan. And I say in one of my older poems, how do you conjugate after 40? You know, like I grew up in a household where my grandparents were native language speakers, my older aunts and uncles, but then 12 children later, it was English was the first language. And so that was also mine, but at least I had exposure. And so there's this way in which the language still lives inside me, and things that the language teaches that aren't necessarily verbal, I feel live inside of me. But like many people, I'm turning to try to share that in my poetry. So I could say so much about that, but I'll just read, there's a little excerpt from the beginning of the prelude, and then there's a poem in here that's called Songs Like Bread. Akaway, a prelude. 1. Between languages, in the shadow of old losses, we adorn ourselves. Words join breath marks, fall into silence. Language stutters and searches. Everywhere careful words break open, they feed us. Memory like bread. Songs like bread, Wikwandawin. Inhabited, we whisper sort, tongue hungers, this blood caress of gone, an almost melody, Nuji Ikwewe Nagamo, courting song, how we yearn for morsels, words, memory tangle of hands kneading the Quaji gun, this dollop of sweetest dough, a language prisoner's bread. This is to hunger, Bakaday. This is to break, Bigoshkad. To speak is to eat, Wikwandawin. Feast food, our jagged stuttering, a giveaway, Muddy O Iriwug. This is to share. So now I'm hoping I can show you something, and I'm hoping you can see it. Can you see this beautiful, it's a Jean Quickchessie Smith. This is this beautiful print that she sent me, a lithograph. We were in communication, and as you know, she died recently. And in Ancient Light, I'm so happy to have dedicated a poem to Jean Quickchessie Smith. And I want to first read what she says about this beautiful piece. Look at some of the lines in here, and I hope I'm showing you all that. And this is what her description of it was. It's called All My Relations. And she writes, all the plants, animals, fish, birds, insects of Mother Earth are my relatives. If humans saw life this way, we would not be in difficulty we find ourselves in today. Our living relatives are going extinct every single day, and people don't understand that we will eventually go extinct too. Maybe that's why billionaires are planning white flight to Mars. Could it be more timely? This is what she wrote about that beautiful print. So if you think, again, try to hold on to some of the images, because the poem was ekphrastic, and I'm playing with some of these images as well as, what I bring to the exchange. It's called Tracing Kinship Lines for Jean Quickchessie Smith. Deep-bellied world, a prairie of saw blades and sweetgrass, skeleton fish who crossed realms, rice kernels and elk antlers, all watered by Manidok, Tempestas and Newton spirits, those sky relatives who answer red willow bark prayers. indigo lines, how they feather, brush, and conjure, animate geometry of angle, arc, of spiral, how color sacreds, each relative, each broken, a winged palette of translucence, primordial genealogy, Mukwa Indodem, the climb of corn plants, bee, buffalo, raccoon, branch lightning, each moth starred and furred, holy the hooved, the leafed, the four-winged kin. How we story water bodies, crow and messenger shadows, Mim Gwasiwug, each feast, spirit plate, offering of a sema, a follow, how lines of pencil smoke lift like music, scent and conjure, Minobama win, transform into animaled eyes, masks, claws, into crossings, no lock, no chain of being, only this blue brush of likeness. So, Nina, do I have time for one old poem?
No, because I want us to
Okay.
have a little bit of a conversation
Okay,
between.
perfect. All right. Well, then I'm glad to end on John Quick to see Smith. Miigwech, everyone.
Okay, so stand by because Bill is going to be pinning the three of us, Kim and Leslie and myself. And I want to do something. I'm just going to, because we don't have a lot of time, I just want to throw out some thoughts about memory because both of your poems draw so much from history and historical memory. I will say that, so Leslie had done this show on this slowdown, Major Jackson's the slowdown. She said, I don't remember hardly anything from after the age of 17, right? And that got me thinking, so if you don't have that memory, there are plenty of poems that don't require memory, but what do you do in the absence of those memories? And then all of a sudden we have this reading that is so full of historical memory, collective unconscious. And I just want to read, there are three things that you said, Kim, about memories. One, you cannot tell stories until you visit the places where they make their homes. Another, the forgotten architecture of friendship and forgotten architecture just really resonates for me. And then the line, memory like bread. I actually sometimes think of my memory as being like Swiss cheese, but that's another thing. I just want to stop here and just let the two of you riff on memory, forgetting, inability to remember. You could both unmute yourself. Great.
Sure. Yeah, well, thank you again, Nina, for listening to those slowdown episodes. But also referencing that one, which was actually the first one that I ended up writing. Maybe funnily enough. And it's true, I have a really poor long-term memory post the age of 17 for reasons I don't need to get into, but I think that actually serves me quite well as a poet and as a storyteller in that um, I I only write poetry. I don't feel like I'm well suited to writing anything else. But I'm really fascinated and compelled by sort of poetics of uncertainty. I think I am often quite distrustful of art that is certain. And so I think that allows me to um, orbit almost like multiple accuracies as I'm putting something together. Um, because I think even when I did have a good memory, I mean, I was really young at that point, but um, it certainly never felt like uh, my impression of of a conversation or some other kind of interaction was to be taken as the only impression of what occurred. And so, yeah, I think there's also room for a kind of polyvocality when you allow other voices to fill in the gaps, right? Sort of to plaster over the holes in the Swiss cheese, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I love what you said about multiple accuracies, because I mean, that's part of what I'm investigating in some of my poems too, is that idea that we can't know, we just can't. I mean, once you think you get it, you understand, you've already deceived yourself, right? It's like we're in a process of always of search, right? And I think if we understand that there's more opening for us to be awed by what's around us, and that we can learn from so many sources, and many of them are not recognized by the Academy, for example.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so I feel like there's this, part of what I want to do with my poems too is to undercut that idea of absolute truth or absolute, like as if the single story could possibly tell all that it is that we need to know, right? Um, and so I also am interested in that. But memory for me has been really important. I have a totally different experience of it in that I have a very early memory. I can remember before I was 2. And it's important for me to hold on to. Well, let me just quote Joe Visner, who says that, and we have both interior and exterior landscapes, and we have to hold on to our interior landscapes because sometimes those exterior ones have been destroyed. They're paved over, they're burned, they're whatever. And so it's important for us to have interior landscapes that we carry. And for me, sometimes those are memory landscapes.
Hmm. That makes me think a little bit about what you were saying about language, right? The idea that there are some parts of your ancestral indigenous language that you can't access, but you still carry with you. And I think that's also a part of the interior landscape. And I felt very connected with you as you shared that because I'm not a fluent Spanish speaker. My parents were very intentional around only speaking English with their children in the home. One, because they didn't want us to have accents, but also over time it morphed that when my parents wanted to talk about their children without them knowing what was going on, they would exclusively use Spanish. And so a lot of my early memories of hearing them speak Spanish is, in a way, them sort of weaponizing the language. And so I
Wow.
think something that I'm trying to do to tend to that interior landscape is to sort of break apart um the parts of me that feel like I don't have a claim to the language because it was intentionally withheld. Um and there's a lot of kind of psychic work in that. But yeah, I don't know.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I totally relate to that, not because that was my relationship with Anishinaabe Moan, but that was a lot of boarding school era, which were my grandparents, which were my older aunts and uncles, who were, just victims of linguicide, right? And the literal, like the absolute land erasure of the language, right? And so I feel like any kind of respeaking is an act of love. Yeah, so, yeah.
So for both of you, both in the act of writing and in the content of your writing, for both of you to some extent, your poetry maybe honors forgetting or maybe lifts up what we don't know or what's could be lost to us or what we don't want to lose.
I like the idea of honoring forgetting. I'm thinking about what would it look like to pursue an ekphrasis of forgetting in a way. Like an homage. And like in the abstract, how does one conceptualize or visualize forgetting? And how might certain formal decisions, tonal decisions, imagistic decisions render that.
Maybe something like an ode to not being able to remember, or an ode to memory getting erased.
And I think the ode is a really interesting tradition to bring into that, because when you're coupling with a sort of received tradition, there's something that's happening there because you're still interacting with a past. It may not necessarily be your direct past, but you are reaching through the sort of canon to take a little bit of that with you as you negotiate and reconcile what's come before you in the immediate sense and then further along. Mm-hmm.
So, when you said like reaching through or beyond the canon, so one of the things that I think I see happening a lot, and like I think I'm a part of this, but I think I see it happening more broadly in Indigenous literature, is working outside the canon. So it's not only alphabetized language, like we're not only connected to that kind of language, but we're connected to other sorts of interart work, and or specifically, like I spend a lot of time trying to explain how you can read the land, like this is part of what I've been taught, and I feel like that is another language. It's a language you have to be literate to a place, and that's another kind of literacy. And I think that's what's being erased from a lot of people's education, is that connection, that ability to be multilingual in something that's not an alphabetized language. Do you know what I mean? Like some people's first language was music, Yeah. So I feel like that I want also somehow to honor that in the work that's happening today, that I see happening today.
Well, that may actually be a good place to wrap up the conversation, though I kind of wish we could go on and on with it. And Leslie, if you write that poem, I hope you'll send it to me. Just want to say to everybody how lucky I feel to have had Kim and Leslie here tonight. They have their books. They have books posted, and you can buy them. You can offer up some money to help us pay them. And Brenda, come back into
I'm back. Just beautiful, just a beautiful reading. I loved hearing you back to back, because there were, of course, your readings were very different. Your work is very different from one another, but there were still threads that I could carry through from Leslie to Kim and Kim back to Leslie, and that it was just a very powerful reading. And I think one that I mean, I think a lot of others here tonight might feel the same way. A reading I really needed to hear right now. I mean, I do feel like you're, I mean, I know it's a cliche to say that, but I really felt that it was salve, that it was salve or medicine, right? That I needed to hear in terms of just reminding me, um, of what is truly important and of, um,
And
all
what goes
of
beyond
all that we have that of all that we have that the powers that be can't break us of and can't take from us and can't, you know what I mean, that of our strengths, really powerful women speaking their
And with what we are seeing as kind of an upswelling and a wave of censorship. And
yeah
these, the voices with which you speak and the voices that you're representing
Mhm.
In your work are so important that we really cannot let what's in our histories and in our art be erased.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, thanks. Thanks to everybody tonight, all the open micers, Leslie and Kim. It was just a beautiful night. It was really gorgeous.
Thank you all so much. And let's hope hasta luego from Mexico.
Uh-huh.
Hope you around, if not sooner than later.
Yeah.
Good night.
Yeah. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night. Aloha. Aloha, everybody.